Welcome to the JS Self-Care Mind, Body, and Soul podcast, a weekly conversation about self-care, personal development, and all the small decisions we can make to become the best possible versions of ourselves. I am your host, Janelle. I am a social worker and a self-care life coach based out of New York. For more information, visit my website at jsselfcare.org. I want to welcome my new listeners. And I also want to welcome my returning listeners. If you can please share this episode, because there's someone in this world who needs to listen to this episode. I also want to personally thank you for making the JS Self-Care Mind, Body, and Soul podcast part of your weekly routine. I truly, truly appreciate you. Today, we will continue our discussion on toxic traits. Toxic behavior is a behavior a human being exhibits. I know many of you heard this before. This mofo is toxic. I have to get this individual out of my life. The reason why people are called toxic because of their negative behaviors. Just so you know, we may not know it, but we also possess toxic behaviors and might not even know it, or that we may not be aware that the behavior is even toxic. So when I say a toxic trait behavior, that someone has and it resonates with you, work on changing it. Change is the self-care thing to do. We don't want to be toxic, but what if we really don't know that the behavior is actually toxic? Always remember, knowing is only the half. The other half is making the change. Remember what Maya Angelou says, when you know better, you do better. So without further ado, let's get into part 2 of toxic traits, toxic behaviors that we all possess. A few of them, some we may not. But if any of them resonate with you, make sure that you fix it. Work on change. So our 16th trait, if this applies to you, remember, change it. But the 16th trait that we may have is taking things personally. How many of us literally take everything personally? Sometimes it's not about you when others do something. Do you ever go on Instagram and see a post by someone and the caption of the post isn't about you and you take it personally? Oh, such and such is talking about me. Do you ever think that there is a 90% chance the post is not about you, but you take it personally? I always say, if it's not directed, it's not respected. Some things people may say or do may be directed at you, but there is also an unhealthy tendency to take things personally, even when they are not. When you assume that a person's anger, annoyance, sadness, or displeasure is your fault, you begin a dangerous thought process. It makes you believe that you are a burden to them, that they do not like or love you, and that you are undeserving of their respect. By taking responsibility for things that have little to do with you, you decrease your own sense of self-worth. Stop taking what others do and say personally. Learn to say, if it's not directed, it's not respected. If others have something to say to you, they will. If they don't say it to you, then don't take it personally what they say or do. Our next one is reliving the past. You can't undo the past and it cannot change. What has happened to you, it happened. Let's get out of the past state of mind. The past becomes a matter of fact as soon as it happens. Aside from the lessons the past can teach us, to dwell on the things that have already passed, you will only prolong the negative emotions you associated with. Generally speaking, past pain is felt far more vividly than past pleasure. So the past is best left in the past. Stop allowing the past to come before your future self and your present self. Your present self is what matters the most, because this is where you get to make needed changes. You don't get to make changes in the past. Next toxic trait is worrying about the future. Just like the past cannot be undone, the future cannot be foretold. We don't know what the future has in store for us, so why focus on it? Here too, the effects of negative emotions are far greater than that of their positive counterparts. Worry and anxiety can easily take hold of your mind, but you can never quite experience happiness over things that are yet to occur. Having goals, dreams, plans, and aspirations is not necessarily bad, but they should be looked upon as possibilities and not outright certainties. The same should hold true for future risks. Don't focus your time of the future because you don't get to focus on the moment you are in. One of our toxic traits is putting all of our energy into the future that we tend to forget what's right in front of us. Ignoring self-care is a bad toxic trait that we possess. A very obvious behavior we possess can lead to a long-term complications of unhappiness is ignoring our self-care. We talk the talk about self-care, but do we actually walk the walk when it comes to our self-care? Remember, self-care is an action word. Get rid of the glitz and glamour about self-care and focus on working on you from the inside to the outside. Self-care is important. Not speaking out. This is a note to self. Not speaking out is potentially harming your well-being. Not all of our toxic behaviors involves your actions. It also sometimes when you don't act. Stop saying, no, I'm just going to shut up and not say nothing. Start saying, I got something to say, and say it. Everything said is not always to hurt others. It's to help others. If you disagree, speak about it. If you agree, speak about it and fuck what other people think. The consequences for not speaking out is stress. And you're going to say, I should have said this when I had the chance. By not saying anything allows others to dictate the terms by which you are then forced to live. You're not allowing them to walk all over you. Remember, you are not nobody's doormat. People will walk all over you with little regard for your opinion or feelings. Speak out. Don't hold nothing back. Not speaking out. This is a note to self. Not speaking out is potentially harming your well-being. Not all of our toxic behaviors involves your actions. It also sometimes when you don't act. Stop saying, no, I'm just going to shut up and say nothing. Start saying, I got something to say, and say it. Everything said is not always to hurt others. It's to help others. If you disagree, speak about it. If you agree, speak about it and fuck what others think. The consequences for not speaking out is stress. And you're going to say, I should have said this when I had the chance. By not saying anything allows others to dictate the terms by which you are then forced to live. You're not allowing them to walk all over you. Remember, you are not nobody's doormat. People will walk all over you with little regard for your opinion or feelings. Speak out. Don't hold nothing in. Holding on to loss. Life cannot be without a loss. Sorry, no, I'm not. If someone wants to leave, let them go. It will hurt, but let them go and begin your process of losing that person. When people want to go, it is a big factor, whether we like it or not. Let them go. We will lose people's security and even our own independence at various points during our lives. When we give ourselves the permission to grieve for the loss of a loved one, a relationship, a job, or anything, it helps us to accept it and then move on. If you lose a loved one, meaning through death, continue to live through it. Learn to live without them. I surely know that space when I lost my mother. I was completely lost, but I realized she will want me to continue with her legacy, and that's exactly what I'm doing. But one thing I was taught, if I lose anything else, I let it go. I say those materialistic things and people don't need to be in my life. I let them go. As Medea says, let them go. By letting go, we are accepting it, and then we have the opportunity to move on. But if we refuse to let go of what has gone, it will keep us trapped in a state of perpetual sadness. Until you relinquish the hold you have on the people whom have let you go, you will be locked in a place unable to move forward upon life's path. Let go of everyone who has let you go. Our next toxic trait is resisting new experiences. When I read the different toxic traits that we may possess, I would have never thought resisting new experiences would be one of them. But as I studied it more, I truly agree. We can stop ourselves from experiencing new experiences because we fear change. We fear exploring new things. Resisting new experiences is intrinsically linked to our worry about our future, is the resistance we have to try new and different things. We tend to find ourselves in our comfort zone, which will not always be negative. We may be restricting our enjoyment of life. You may shun your future self in favor of the unknown, and even if the former you would increase your overall satisfaction. Don't resist new experiences to stay in your comfort zone. The control freak, another toxic trait. The control freak is someone who wants to control everything and everyone around them. This person's toxic trait not only wants to control themselves, but they want to control what you do, what you say, and even what you think. You know the exact person I'm talking about. Run. This person even freaks out when you disagree with them. They need you to validate everything about them. They say the sky is purple and you agree, knowing damn well the sky is not purple. You're just agreeing to avoid the backlash or to avoid the argument. The control freak won't stop trying to convince you that they are right and that you should do what they say. In a relationship, this person will give you no breathing room and will constantly nag you until you are in complete alignment with them. Be careful. The control freak will go after your emotional, conversational, and mental freedom until you have nothing left. Get out while you can. Run. People that talk over you. Have you ever had an interesting point to make? Have you ever tried to share your thoughts during a conversation? Save your breath. The toxic person will maybe allow you to get a few words in before they interrupt and swing the spotlight back on themselves. For example, someone say, "Hey, Janelle, how is self-care doing? I see you are putting in that work." I'll get to respond by saying thank you and explaining the hard work. Before I begin, I'm stopped abruptly by another person in the conversation. They will say, "We always talking about self-care. Let's talk about something else." And then they will create the conversation all about them and what they are trying to do. Even if you begin to say something like, "Can I finish?" They'll never let you finish. Actually, they need you in the conversation so as to not appear they've been talking to themselves. And if you dare interrupt them, oh God, they'll promptly accuse you of being a poor listener. Talking over people is a toxic trait, but it can be worked on. All you have to say to the person is, "Can I please finish?" with a high tone. Also address it with them and say, "Whenever I talk, you cut me off and begin to talk over me. Can you please stop doing that? Stop talking over me." The next one, some of us may have been in this situation. The spiritual vampire, aka the negative Annie, is a person who tends to suck the positivity out of you, or they bleed you emotionally dry. These are the people who always have something sad, negative, or pessimistic to say. Spiritual vampires can never see the positive and tend to bring everyone down with them. If you are around someone and they only have bad things to say whenever you see them, watch out. Stay away from them, negative Annies. You're celebrating your wins and all they're saying is, "What if this happened? What are you going to do?" And you like, "Damn, can I live in a moment?" Jeez, you got to be negative about everything. One is very, very important, and this could be a lot of people's negative toxic trait that they possess. People that go out of their way for others but don't get the same treatment in return. If you were to go out of your way to help someone, just know that you are going out of your way to help them, and they may not reciprocate the same when you need them to. You most definitely can take that to the bank unless they are going to get something out of the transaction. Let me explain. You will go all out of your way for a friend or family member, and you will not reap a reward. You will do it because you want to do it. Now the table turns and you need that same person, but they won't come through for you and you may need them. You will ask them and remind them, remember when I was there for you? Now you can be there for me because there is no reward for you. So I say, when you do something for someone, make sure you are doing it for them and you are not doing it because you feel as if you needed help, they would do the same, because they won't. Do things because you want to do things, not because you want it done for you in return, because sometimes it won't be done for you in return. Our next toxic trait or behavior is they'll make it about the way you're talking rather than what you're talking about. If you are debating with someone to resolve an issue or get clarification, and before you know it, the conversation argument has moved away from the issue that was important to you and onto the matter of which you are talking about. Then the conversation has changed, and how you'll be defending your tone, your gestures, your choice of words, or the way your belly moves when you breathe. It would turn into, stop yelling. And now you're saying, I'm not yelling. I'm expressing myself. Boom. Now the whole conversation has changed and you won't be getting your point across that day. At that point, it doesn't even make sense. Meanwhile, your initial need is well gone on a pile of unfinished conversations that seem to grow bigger by the day. Do you know anyone who's just straight up mean and you like, God, do you have any feelings? I mean, do you feel anything? These people live a empathy-free life. You don't have to walk a mile in a person's shoes to know when it's time to show some real empathy. Even if you cannot relate to a specific life experiences, those who are not toxic will still know when it's time to seek understanding. If they are willing to try seeing the world through another's perspective and instead make light of the things that are waiting for you, then they are nothing but toxic to your life. Show empathy. Don't be a complete ass. Our next toxic trait that people have is they create problems instead of solutions. Negative toxic people always find a way to mess up. It's in their nature. When you look for the bad, you'll find the bad. Each time you come up with solutions, they will find a problem. It's like a never-ending game with them. In fact, you don't need to believe me. Believe Einstein. Stay away from people who are not solution-based. Let them create them problems with someone else. If you come up with something, make sure that you're coming up with it and you're confident in what you come up with. So when those negative people create a problem, well, what if this happened? Be like, listen, what if this happens? This is what we're going to do. Be more solution-based and stop saying, what if this happened? What if that happened? What if this happens? We can do this. That's the solution. Thank you. Our last toxic trait is a toxic trait that a person has is they will put you down publicly. Putting you down in private is one thing. Putting you down publicly is another. They usually feel more acknowledged when there are people around them. Sometimes they are not even aware that they are criticizing you, but they always find a way to prove that they are superior in front of others. This trait is actually a trait that a lot of people share, not only truly toxic people, by being sarcastic or being rude, by pointing something that they know that someone else don't. They feel smarter. Don't put people down publicly. Pull them to the side and say, hey, so-and-so, but don't do that. It's not respected. As was highlighted at the beginning of this episode, these behaviors are best avoided whether they come from you or someone else in your life. Try to recognize those you might be guilty of and then act to avoid behaving in such ways in the future. While I hope you love listening to and learning from this podcast, it is not meant to be a substitute for mental health treatment. Schedule a coaching session with me, your self-care life coach, Janelle. If mental health treatment is needed, please don't hesitate to contact a therapist in your area. Self-care is important and necessary. Take care of you and continue to put you first no matter what. If anything in this podcast resonated with you and you want to continue the conversation, please don't hesitate to contact me, Janelle, at jsselfcare.org.